hello to our listeners around the world. Hello and welcome back to the Drama Coach podcast. My name is Lisa Southam. I'm an actor, drama coach, mum of young performers, and host of this podcast, where we talk about acting, auditions, training, confidence, the industry, and how to support young performers in a way that's informed, realistic, and healthy. And today's episode is a little bit different because I want to say hello. Not just hello in the usual podcast way, but properly hello to everyone listening and watching from different places. Because when I recently looked at the podcast stats, I had one of those lovely little moments where I thought, people are actually listening. Not just in the UK, which is still the main audience and makes complete sense, but also in the United States, Germany, Australia, Austria, New Zealand, and Switzerland. So, hello. Hello if you're listening in the UK. Hello if you're listening in the United States. Hello if you are listening in Germany or Austria. Good day if you're in Australia. Kia ora if you're listening in New Zealand. And hello, bonjour, hello, ciao if you're listening in Switzerland, depending on where you are. And if I've butchered any of those hellos, I do apologise. Please feel free to email in and tell me. Yeah, do forgive me. I'm trying. But genuinely, thank you. Wherever you are, whether you're a parent of a young performer, a teenage actor, an early career performer, a drama teacher, chaperone, agent, casting person, or someone who's just curious about this world, I'm so glad that you're here. When you start a podcast, it can feel a bit like talking into the air. You record an episode, you upload it, you share it, you hope that it helps someone, and then slowly you start to realise that there are actual people on the other end. People listening in their car, on the school run, walking the dog, on a train, maybe while making dinner, maybe whilst waiting outside a drama class, a dance class, or a rehearsal. Maybe people are thinking, does my child need an agent? Maybe while wondering, is this industry for me? Maybe while trying to understand self-tapes, auditions, rejection, drama school, spotlight, show reels, voice work, social media, confidence, all of it. And that really means something to me because this podcast was never meant to be about hype. It was never meant to be, here's how to make your child famous. No, absolutely not. I'm sure you've heard me say that before. But it was meant to be, and hopefully is, calm, honest, a useful space for people who are trying to navigate performing, training, and the creative industries without losing the joy or the young person at the centre. So if you've listened to one episode, shared a clip, sent one episode to another parent, watched it on YouTube, followed on Spotify, left a rating, or just quietly listened without saying anything, I thank you. You are part of this little growing community, and I love it. Now, I know podcast stats are not always perfect. So if someone is listening in Germany or Australia or Switzerland, I know that it can mean different things. It might mean someone who lives there. It might be a British family abroad, someone on holiday, someone working overseas. It might be a young performer who's training internationally. It might be a parent who found one episode through a guest or social media clip. It might even be someone who clicked by accident and thought, who's this woman talking about self-tapes and child performers? But however you got here, I love that you are here. And it's made me think about something bigger because acting, training, and auditions look different depending on where you are. The UK industry has its own systems. The American industry has its own systems. Australia has its own roots. Germany, Austria, Switzerland have their own theatre, screen, and training landscapes. New Zealand has its own creative industry and screen world. And yet, so many of the questions underneath are the same. How do I train? How do I get experience? How do I know if an opportunity is safe? How do I cope with rejection? How do I prepare for auditions? How do I find representation? How do I support my child without putting too much pressure on them? How do I build confidence? How do I know if I'm doing enough? How do I know if I'm doing too much? Those questions travel. One of the things I find really interesting is how different the acting landscape can be from country to country. In the UK, we talk about things like Spotlight, Agents, Drama School, Lambda exams, youth theatre, self-tapes, chaperones, school shows, professional theatre, commercials, TV casting, and getting those first bits of experience. For parents of young performers here, there can be a lot of confusion around when do I need an agent? When do we need Spotlight? What's a good drama class? How do I know if a casting is legitimate? What do chaperones do? How do we manage school and performing? How do we stop auditions becoming too intense? In America, from what I understand, the landscape can feel even bigger and faster in some ways. People talk more about managers, agents, actors' access, union and non-union work. Do you belong to SAG-AFTRA? Whereas here in the UK, we might talk about equity, but I would say it's less talked about than it is in America, and how, there may be pressures to be union. Pilot season, self-tapes, local markets, LA, New York, Atlanta, and the sheer scale of the industry. In Australia and New Zealand, there are brilliant screen industries, but performers may also be dealing with similar markets, distance, and questions around whether to stay local or look internationally. In Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, I imagine there are different relationships between theatre, screen, training, language, regional markets, and international work. And I'm saying I imagine very deliberately because I do not want to sit here pretending I know every country's acting industry in depth, because I definitely don't. I would love to hear about it though. And actually, that's partly why I wanted to make this episode, because I would love to hear from you. What is the acting landscape like where you are? And I think even in time of prepping this script and then looking again at my stats, there were other countries popping up as well. So if you're listening from somewhere I haven't listed, my apologies, and let me know what the acting industry is like, or what a lovely holiday you had and you still listen to the Drama Coach podcast. These different countries, what do young performers do in your country? Are there agents specifically for children? Are there casting platforms that everybody uses? Is theatre the main route? Is screen work growing? Are self-tapes normal? I feel like they are international ever since the pandemic, but maybe things are different. Do young actors train through schools, private classes, youth theatres, conservatoires, universities, community groups? Are parents involved in the same way? I think you've heard me nickname the mumagers. Do you have mumagers? It doesn't have to be mums, does it? It could be dads, it could be any adult looking out for the young person. Is there a lot of pressure, or is it more relaxed? And what do people misunderstand? What do you wish more parents or young performers knew? Because I find this fascinating, and I think that other listeners would too. So what can we learn from each other? One of the lovely things about having listeners in different places is that it reminds us that there is not just one route. And I think that's such an important message for young performers, because it's very easy to think there's one correct path. Get the right agent, get on the right platform, go to the right school, book the right job, be seen by the right person, do the right course, make the right tape. And yes, there are good choices. There are sensible steps. There are professional standards. There are things that help. But there is not, and I don't think there ever will be, one path. Some people start in youth theatre. Some start in dance. Some start in school shows. Some in commercials. Some through a local drama group. Some go to drama school. Some go to university. Some train later. Some act as children and then stop. Some start as adults. Some work on stage first. Some go straight into screen. Some write their own work. Some build through voiceover. Some discover that they actually love directing, producing, teaching, editing, movement, or backstage work. And the more we understand different routes, the less panicked we become. Because we stop thinking everyone else knows exactly what they are doing and I am behind. Most people are not behind. They're just on a different route. And sometimes seeing how performers work in other countries can really help us loosen our grip a little bit. It reminds us that the industry is not one fixed ladder. It's a landscape. a strange, exciting, sometimes difficult, sometimes wonderful landscape for parents of young performers. If you're a parent listening from anywhere in the world, I would say this: the details might be different where you are, but your role matters. You might be navigating Spotlight in the UK, Actors Access in America, local agencies in Australia, a theatre-led route in Europe, school shows, youth theatre, dance training, community performances, commercials, voiceover, or something else entirely. But the emotional role of the parent is often similar. You're trying to support without pushing. You're trying to encourage without over-investing. You're trying to help your child prepare without making every audition feel like a life-changing event. You're trying to understand an industry that can feel confusing, expensive, exciting, and opaque. You're trying to celebrate the wins and soften the disappointments. You're trying to keep them safe. And sometimes you're trying to work out whether this is a hobby, a passion, a possible career, or just a lovely season of their childhood. That is a lot. So wherever you're listening from, please know that you're not alone in that. A lot of parents are asking the same questions, even if the systems around them look different. For young performers, if you're a young performer listening, whether you're in the UK, America, Germany, Australia, Austria, New Zealand, Switzerland, or somewhere else entirely, I want you to hear this. You do not have to have everything figured out. You do not have to know your whole career path. You do not have to be on every platform. You do not have to have the perfect showreel. You do not have to compare your journey to someone in another country, another school, another drama group, or another agency. Start where you are. Get good at the work. Take your training seriously. Be kind to people. Learn to listen. Learn to prepare, to take direction. Learn how to cope when things don't go your way. And stay curious. Because curiosity is such an underrated quality in performers. Be curious about acting, about people, about different cultures. Be curious about how theatre and screen work in different countries. Be curious about accents, language, movement, storytelling, style, film, stage, voice, camera, all of it. That curiosity will make you a better performer. Now, I don't want this episode to sound like, oh, look, we have listeners in different countries, aren't we fancy? No, that's really not the point. The point is connection. The point is that this little podcast, which started from my work as an actor, drama coach, mum, and teacher in the UK, is reaching people in different places. And I think that's beautiful because the performing arts are international. Stories travel. Films travel, theatre, music, accents travel, training ideas travel, audition advice travels, and confidence work definitely travels. A young performer in Wiltshire and a young performer in Australia may be in very different industries, but they may both be learning how to walk into a room, introduce themselves, take a breath, and share a piece of text. A parent in the UK and a parent in the US may be dealing with different platforms, but they may be both trying to stay calm after a child does not get a role they really wanted. A drama teacher in Germany and a drama coach in New Zealand may use different systems, but they may both be trying to build confidence, creativity, ensemble, and courage. That's the bit that excites me. We're all working with young people, creativity, communication, courage, and rejection. Different countries, different systems, very human questions. What I would love from you. So, I would love to make this a two-way conversation. If you're listening outside of the UK, I would genuinely love to hear from you. Where are you listening from? Are you a parent, a performer, a teacher, an actor, agent, casting person, creative, or just curious? What does acting training look like where you are? What casting platforms do people use? Do young performers usually have agents? Are self-tapes common? Is theatre popular? Is screen work growing? What are the biggest challenges for young performers in your country? And what do you think people in the UK might misunderstand about your industry, you can message me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or YouTube. I'm at The Drama Coach on all of them. Or you can email me, lisa@thedramacoach.co.uk. I would love to receive your email and hear a little bit about the acting industry wherever you are. And if you'd be happy for me to share your message or your question on a future episode, then please say so, because I'd love to feature you. Because I think this could become a really lovely mini-series or listener question section, perhaps. We could have a parent's view from Australia. We could have a young actor's view from America, a drama teacher's view from Germany, a performer's view from New Zealand, a creative's view from Switzerland, and any other country around the world. If I've missed you and you've started listening, apologies. I hope you show up on the statistics soon. And if you're a UK listener living abroad or travelling, I would love to hear from you as well. Tell me where you're listening. Tell me what brought you to the podcast, and tell me which episode has helped you. So, how this all links back to the podcast then. At the heart of the Drama Coach podcast, I think the mission is quite simple. It's to make the acting world feel less confusing, to help parents support young performers more calmly, to help performers build confidence, craft, and resilience, to bring in useful industry voices, to talk honestly about training, auditions, agents, self-tapes, drama school, voice work, social media, rejection, well-being, and all the bits people often do not explain clearly. And now, knowing that people are listening from different countries, it makes me want to keep that door open a little wider. So I'll still talk a lot about the UK, because that's where I'm based and that's the industry that I know best. I will still talk about Spotlight, UK agents, Lambda exams, chaperones, drama schools, youth theatre, and self-tapes from a UK perspective. But I'll also keep remembering that not everyone is listening in exactly the same system. So when I can, I'll try to say, this is how it works in the UK, and it may be different where you are. Check your local rules, ask local professionals, and if you know how it works in your country, then tell me, because I don't want to pretend to be an expert in every acting market. I would much rather be curious, honest, and useful. This episode is sponsored by Scene Tribe, the creative industries network built around the work you've done and the people you've done it with. And actually, this episode feels like a really natural place to mention Scene Tribe, because so much of this conversation is about connection, not just being seen in a vague way, but being connected through real work, real credits, and real collaborations. The creative industries are international, and they're also relational. People work with people, teams form, directors remember actors, actors remember good crews, teachers remember students, choreographers build networks, voice artists, editors, writers, photographers, producers, performers, they all exist in relation to the work they have done and the people they've worked with. That is what I really like about the idea behind Scene Tribe. It's not just a flat profile. It's a way of showing the creative work and the relationships around that work. And with under 18 parent-managed profiles now available, it's becoming a really interesting space for young performers and their families to explore safely with an adult holding the responsibility. You can find out more at scenetribe.com. So here's a few practical takeaways for wherever you're listening from. After this episode, things you can do are: find out what the trusted routes are in your country. Not the loudest routes, not the most glamorous routes, the trusted ones. Which platforms are actually used? Which agents are reputable? What safeguarding rules exist for children? What training is respected? What local theatres, drama schools, youth companies, or screen acting classes are worth knowing about? Second, do not assume another country's system should be your system. It's useful to learn from other industries, but don't panic because someone in America is doing something different from someone in the UK, or someone in Australia has a different route from someone in Germany. Third, keep the young performer at the centre. Whatever country you're in, that matters. Their well-being matters, their confidence matters, their training, their enjoyment, and their safety matters. Number 4, Build your network with kindness. This industry is not just about being chosen. It's about relationships, collaboration, reputation, and how people feel when they work with you. That's true in any country. And finally, stay curious. Curiosity makes you a better performer. It makes you a better parent supporter. It makes you a better teacher. It makes you more open, more adaptable, and more interesting. And in a creative industry, that really matters. So this episode has really just been a big thank you. Thank you to everyone listening and watching in the UK. Thank you to everyone in the United States. Thank you to those in Germany, Australia, Austria, New Zealand, and Switzerland. And thank you if you're listening somewhere else that's not shown up in the stats yet. I'm so glad you are here. Please do come and say hello. Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me what the acting world looks like where you are. Tell me what questions you have. And tell me what you would love the podcast to cover next. You can find me as The Drama Coach on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Please follow, subscribe, share the episode with someone who might find it helpful, and leave a rating or review if you're listening somewhere that lets you do that. It really does help more parents, performers, and creative people find the podcast. Thank you so very much for being here. And wherever you're listening from, I hope to see you next time on the Drama Coach podcast.